This is a beautiful old-growth forest that's owned by the public under the care of Roseburg Bureau of Land Management that is supposed to protect our public forest for all the wonderful values this old-growth forest gives us.
My dream as a little girl was to get land and protect it, to get as much land as I could and protect it from logging and make it a good place for wildlife to live. And I wasn't born rich.
We have a log cabin that's been here since early 1920, and that's where my folks live. I live just here on the lower part of the property with my two children. We cut timber here. We try to selectively thin our property and keep it healthy, and we mill trees and try to do so in a good, responsible way.
I've lived in the Umpqua Basin since 1975. I love it here. One of my first jobs I got was a tree planter, and I planted trees in BLM clear cuts, and I was like, that was my school.
When we first moved here, I just walked around and said, well, I could paint for the rest of my life in walking distance of this house. And I feel like my contribution is that I've been documenting not just the beauty, but also the culture that's grown up right along the waterfront.
Well, I'm Chuck Schnauts. I was born in Corvallis, Oregon, some 70 plus years ago. I've always been involved in water issues. So what happens in the river is dependent upon what happens on the land around it.
Don't ask me what you're talking about.
The deer animal. Well, Frank and Jenny Moore have been around forever. I totally appreciate their work, and we can just thank them so much for their work and calling attention to the incredible resource of fishing we have in the North Umpqua River. They have really worked to protect that resource and to say, hey, this is here, you can't clear cut anymore, thanks to Frank and Jenny Moore.
Originally, when they'd try to do it, we'd raise enough hell that they'd have to back off.
Who's we, Mr. Moore?
You and
no,
me.
It was you.
And the Glide Wildflower Show women.
Oh.
They were powerful. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In 2016, the BLM changed their forest management plan so they could log more. And now we're starting to see that. Before, this forest would never be considered for logging. We're seeing more clear cuts from BLM.
Somewhere around where that power pole is where it is. It's going to be cut from the ridge down to the river.
Oh, I can't believe they would even conceive of doing that. It's come around from Glide, come up the highway, and this is really the entrance to the scenic corridor.
Some of the Umpqua Sweets timber sales right next to people's homes. And BLM will do the analysis in their EA that will admit that they're increasing the fire hazard. And then they're going to go ahead and do it.
Well, BLM is planning to log around Coal Creek, and you can kind of see way up there the top of the unit. So up above it's logged into the creek. BLM will log either side of the creek.
You know, they a lot of times they say, oh well, we can leave this right along the river, but the tributaries themselves sometimes are more important than the river as far as the flow of the mud and the stuff like that.
But when you cut those trees down and you log that forest, it releases a lot of that carbon into the atmosphere when it's disturbed. As a matter of fact, logging is our largest source of carbon pollution in Oregon. And so for our public forests, at least for our public forests, we should keep them to sequester that carbon.
We need to continue refocus on what is multiple use and how does that change over time. Because today, recreation is a huge part of Douglas County's economic life, and it wasn't 100 years ago. It wasn't.
We would ultimately hope for maintaining a good relationship with BLM, and that they will continue to maintain responsible forest practices and management and keep the lands in a good way for all the people here now to enjoy it, and also for future generations.
The forest, the river, and the people, and the fish. When you take the forest away, and then everything else is going to suffer.
It can't be just about me and my people. It's all of the people that come here to recreate. It's the people that live here along the river. But this river is already a jewel, and we can't give it up.
I want to see it protected. I want it to be the same magical place it is. So we have to be careful about that.
When you drive down the road and you see a big nasty clear cut, likely that's private land. Soon, we will also be seeing it on public lands. If projects like Umpqua Sweets go through, we're going to do our best to stop it.
Overall, though, man, I'll tell you, I cannot believe that we have been so blessed to have lived where and as we have. You know, it's been a beautiful gift. And we've had a life that very few people have had, and it's been very, very good.